But
So you missed that. I
the
mean, you
first
were
time,
aware of it, but you weren't watching like the
well,
Rock and Wrestling
no, but the
Connection.
first time
Cindy,
I saw Hulk was on Rocky. And
right,
I was like, who
83 or
the
82. Yeah.
fuck is that? But I knew who Flair was
Well, because he did.
because
He would have done. Well, no, year what? Give me the year. What are we talking about when you were
I don't
watching?
know, but
Late.
I used to, I remember fucking when I was bouncing, and I've been bouncing I was probably 20 when I really started bouncing. And I'd always say, I'd say, man, you got to go. And the guy, oh, I say, dude, you don't have to fucking like it, but you just got to learn to love it. It's the best thing going today. Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like,
Oh yeah, all of Rick's
yeah,
colloquialisms, phenomenal. Whether you like it or don't like it, sit down and look at it
can't
because it's
keep
the
these
best going today.
alligators down.
And then Flair Mach 2, when he was no longer the youngest guy in the ring in the 90s, changed it to, because he used to call himself Space Mountain in 85 when Space Mountain was the hot new ride in Disney. So then in the 90s, he referred to himself as Space Mountain and say, the oldest ride in the park with the longest line. Are
And
you
I used
fucking
to always
amazed?
like this. He'd be cutting a promo, especially like early WCW when it was like doing stand up on a fucking cruise ship, being out in the ring. And it's like fucking 1,300 smart marks at the fucking Philadelphia Civic Center out by the railroad tracks. And Flair would fucking be cutting a promo. He'd stop and he'd look at some girl and he'd go, you can't be first, but you could be next. And he'd fucking give her a couple of pumps and then go back to cutting his promo. And, you know, he's just sitting there looking through the curtains going, now, if I did that, I'd get fired. And he gets a pop.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, as time went on, because when I got into the business, Ole had the book, and then towards the middle end of that, I remember like Jacksonville was always a good town for WCW in the early '90s, and talking like a $45,000 house was huge
Mm-hmm.
back then. But Jacksonville was always a crowd, and I remember Rick had the book, and I remember like being in this like this back area and seeing like him and his cohorts putting some shit together for the show, and that was like the first time I actually watched,
Mm.
you know, firsthand how this shit was put together.
I
So,
never did. He's one of the ones that got away in the kayfabe era. I never got to interview Rick, and I'd love to because I think to give myself props as an interviewer, I tend not to go for the low-hanging fruit. I don't know this. I don't need to know the stuff that I can find out easily. I would talk to Rick about when he was champ, 85, 86, that era, Jim Crockett Promotions. The fucking guy would be in a suit, like legit, before getting to the arena at the airport in case he was seen, because you got to carry the image, right? So how did he fucking travel? And that belt was ridiculous. How much shit he would have to lug. And especially when if he was doing like the Carolinas or whatever, where he had a house, maybe he could get home every 2 days. He's working Dallas for a week and then maybe going to San Francisco for a
dude,
week.
I used to watch those divas when they first fucking really started to push that fucking whole trademark
Yeah.
and that idea and that identity. And the girls, man, it was like being a Brana flight attendant back in the day. Like you had to be hot, you had to be made up. It wasn't like you could throw your long hair in a ponytail and put on a baseball cap and get on a flight that morning.
Right.
Every one of those girls, man, it was, and it was a testament that. And then and at the same time, I remember seeing Trish, and as beautiful as Trish was, and everything else, you'd walk into the training room, and she'd have a split lip and a black eye and bruises all over it, and it looked like she was in some abusive hillbilly eulogy relationship.
And
Probably with a husband that drank Diet Mountain Dew. I don't know.
then how many suits Rick would get them ripped off him during
Oh,
the schmazzes at the end of at
yeah, but
8:03 off
Rick
the
wasn't
air.
no dummy though. I guarantee you, he was giving somebody a fucking receipt for that.
Yeah, well, see, this is the shit with that I would talk to him about.
Yeah, because I know Rick. Like, okay, this lapel's a little out of fucking style. If I'm going to get it torn off me by Blackjack, he can tear this one off. I'll go get a new one made.
Right.
Something more style. Yeah, I need a new double breasted.